Welcome to episode 3 of the Convention of States Michigan podcast. I'm Robin Riddell. I am the State Communications Coordinator and co-host of this podcast. Today's program is a message for the Michigan grassroots from our State Director, Sarah Santana.
Hi, everyone. Kelly Olford here. I'm a mom of 2. I live in St. Clair. I've been volunteering with Convention of States for a couple of years now. And just getting involved with this I'm co-hosting the podcast here teaming up with Robin, and we're thankful to have all of you here listening in, and we're thankful to have Sarah here too, to be able to hear from her as we get out the message for the grassroots and our message for going as we start off 2023 and what it is that Michigan has in store for us for Convention of States. So thank you, Sarah, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Our guest today is Sarah Santana. Sarah joined COS Michigan a couple of years ago as a volunteer. She recently accepted the position of State Director. Sarah is a mom of 6, a wife, a daughter, a friend, and a patriot. Welcome, Sarah, and congratulations on your appointment as State Director for Convention of States. You've earned it, and I am happy to be working on your team.
Thank you. It is a huge honor to be able to serve with this team.
Terrific. So, Sarah, we are guided by our daily mission to build the largest grassroots army of self-governing activists. What can you tell us about Michigan's grassroots army?
Well, I think the most important thing about our army is that they are not professionals. At least they are not political professionals. They are professionals that do all kinds of other things. We have truck drivers, we have construction workers, we have people who work in the medical fields. We have people from every walk of life, and they're just ordinary people. And they are killing it. This last year, we added about 100 volunteers. I'd love 1,000. We added about 100 volunteers to our team. They managed to do 65 events, which is just amazing. They started doing Facebook Lives, this podcast, and they made, 2,000 telepatriot calls at least. It's just been really, really amazing what they've accomplished this year.
And for the listeners who maybe aren't familiar, can you explain just very briefly what telepatriot calls are?
Yes, telepatriot calls is when we call our signers and we ask them to reach out to their legislators. We are talking to the different legislators, so we are more aware of, whether or not the legislator is in support of Convention of State or not. And so we will reach out to people who have signed our petition and ask them to reach out to their legislator and talk to them about it so they can be engaged, because frankly, their legislator wants to hear from them more than they want to hear from us because they're their constituent. And so we've made a bunch of calls like that, and people out there have done a fantastic job reaching out to their legislators.
What types of things are we reaching out and talking about with our legislators? What types of things are we saying?
Primarily, we're asking them to support Convention of States, but within that comes all the categories that are covered with Convention of States, things like federal overreach, term limits for federal officials and members of Congress, as well as fiscal restraints on the federal government. And we talk about how we're seeing the negative impacts of those issues here in Michigan. And when you talk to the legislator about those issues and how they actually have the power with the Constitution to help us solve that problem here in America, that's really the focus of what we do.
Very good.
Sarah, do you think it's appropriate to say that our enemy is apathy?
I think it's appropriate to say that our enemy has been apathy, that is definitely how we got here. Today, I would say that that's still a problem for a certain percentage of the population, but it's an ever increasingly smaller portion of the population. Now, I think the main enemy is a lack of knowledge of how to solve the problems that we're seeing and a fear of failure. one of the most common things I hear from volunteers and just people who are supporters is, I don't want to commit and then underperform. And I've heard that so many times from just wonderful folks. And I think on some level, we all understand that sentiment. But we are definitely at a point in our history where we can't afford that sentiment anymore. It really isn't a matter of, can you perform well enough? It's a matter of, will you get out there and do something? And especially if you're looking at getting involved with convention of states, you need to know that it's not a matter of, can you give enough? It's a matter of, what are you willing to give? We all, as I said, have lives. We have working professionals. Yes, we have people who are retired, but even then they have responsibilities. And everyone gives what they can, not necessarily what they wish they could. And sometimes you don't get done what you want to get done. I can tell you every single day I fail to get done what I would like to get done that day. But that doesn't mean that I have failed, because I got something done. I did something, however small, I did something. If that was 5 minutes making one phone call, that was something. And if we can take all of our little somethings and add those together, we can save our country.
I like that. What is the secret then to, as you were just kind of mentioning, to kind of waking up, getting Michiganders involved, getting us, kind of away from that apathetic mindset, or away from that that fear of failure mindset, to get us motivated enough to be able to move? What is how are we, kind of what's your secret to be able to do that? Are you working on anything specific, or is there anything that that Michiganders in general can be working on? What are your thoughts on that?
I think the more that when we educate the public on how they can be involved, because that's very, very important. Even if you are willing to get out there and do, if you don't know what to do, you can't do anything. And for years, I think I felt that way. Like, I can't do anything. I feel so just incapable of doing anything that helps, because I don't know how to solve this problem or that problem. And so us being able to get out there and communicate that to the public as clearly as possible, I think will be very, very helpful. And we're continuing to do that. We are doing that in a lot of different ways. We do that through in-person meetings in various places in the state, as well as via the Facebook Lives and this podcast. And, honestly, if people are listening to this podcast, their issue is not that they're unwilling to get involved. It's not apathy, because they're listening to this podcast. If you're listening to this podcast, you're looking for a way to get involved. And maybe you're struggling with some feelings of, I don't know if I can give enough. If those are your issues, please do not feel that way. You should know that if you join our volunteer team, there is always someone there to have your back, because that's what we need. Not any one of us can be Superman. So you will have someone there to help. If you try something and it's not working out, well, we can find something else for you to do, or we can find someone to help you do it. This is not a, you can't be good enough. This is a, every little bit you give helps. And we're just going to keep preaching that. We're going to keep getting the word out. And the more people that come and help us share that information with people, the larger our team will get, the better coverage of the state we can get, the more people will hear, and it just keeps going.
Keeps snowballing.
Exactly.
Yeah, very good.
Sarah, would you tell us about a couple of volunteer roles that across the state we could use, that people can, with whatever skills they have, give an hour a week or an hour a month? Give us a couple of examples.
I think we have some excellent things that people can do in a very limited amount of time. One thing you can do is you can be a follow-up person for us. That is a very, very low time commitment. What you do as a follow-up person is you send emails to people who sign our petition, and you just thank them for signing the petition, and you give them the information they need if they want to get more involved, or if they want to know who their legislator is. It's all there for you. You don't have to know a lot to start doing that, and you can do that at any time of day. And we just need someone who will go on, check, and send those emails. And that really takes about an hour a week. Very, very low time commitment and very flexible. We need people who can be social media warriors, who can go on the internet and do the things that Robin will point out for you to do to share information about convention of states. And that's something that you can also do at any time of day. People are on the internet all the time. So if you're working, a graveyard shift, you can come home and you can post a couple things and it's fine. People will see it in the morning or they'll see it at night. And we need people out there doing those sorts of things. We also need people who are willing to plan events for us. And that sounds like a very, very big time consuming job, but you don't have to do it all in 1 week. You can plan 2 events a year for us and do it slowly over a couple of months. And that doesn't have to be a huge time consuming job either. So there's really a lot of options out there, and we're willing to work with you in your schedule so that you can be a part of our team.
What types of outreach are we doing as far as social media goes?
Kelly, I don't know how to answer that question.
Maybe Robin would be.
You tell me.
I can take that question. We have a very strong presence with our own Michigan page on Facebook. Got about 15,000 followers there. We pick up stories from national. We publish our own events, blogs that our writers have written, recognizing our achievements here in the state. Our social media warriors are engaged on some of the other not Facebook platforms that are important to us. And as a social media warrior, you share our information. You help promote and leverage and get our message out to even more people. And as importantly, to engage with people who are spreading misinformation about Convention of States. Now, if you're sitting at home or in your car riding and going, well, but I don't really know about this, we offer training. All of our volunteers get trained. All of this stuff that Sarah's mentioned, or a social media warrior, we have very comprehensive training about the Constitution, about some of the objectives that you will hear, the legal aspects of what we're doing. That training is free. It is worth it for anybody who wants an update, current information on the Constitution to be aware of and take advantage of.
Now, Sarah, Robin just brought up an interesting point that I don't know if you want to touch on or not, but when Robin was just mentioning something about spreading talking about misinformation and types of things that we hear with Convention of States. What are some of kind of those big ones that you hear or that, Convention of States people need to be making sure that we keep an eye out for as far as misinformation or the, myths go as far as what a Convention of States actually is?
The primary one is always runaway convention. The idea that when our delegates go to a convention of states, they'll have the ability to just rewrite the Constitution or propose whatever amendments they want. And that is, both of those are false. They can't propose whatever they want, and they can't rewrite the Constitution. That's not within the authority that's being granted them by the legislatures. According to our Constitution, the legislatures have the authority to call for a convention. And when they do that, they set the ground rules. They say this is what the convention is going to be about. And with the Convention of States resolution that they pass, they can only propose amendments on those 3 topics: fiscal restraint for the federal government, term limits for federal officials and members of Congress, and reducing the size and jurisdiction of the federal government. And if it falls outside of that, it's a no-go. They just don't have the authority to do it because the legislatures haven't given it. That means that they can't go and propose an amendment to make life begin at conception. They also can't propose an amendment to get rid of the Second Amendment. We can't get rid of gun rights via this convention. That doesn't mean that they couldn't call a different convention to do that, but that would require going to all the states and getting a different resolution passed. That can't be done with this convention.
So those three kind of topics that you did, those three items that you just mentioned, those are the three items that this particular convention would be focusing on.
Yes, and no other items could be considered. Now, there's a lot that can get covered within those items. There's a lot of different ways that you can reduce the size and jurisdiction of the federal government, but it has to fall within that category. You can't increase the size or jurisdiction of the federal government, and that reduces a lot of different things you could do. So yes, you can do a lot of different amendments within that, but you can't do a different topic.
And how would those topics kind of personally affect all of us Michiganders here? Like what types of things would we be able to see here on the home front with helping get these three topics taken care of at the federal level?
Can you ask that one more time? I'm not sure I fully understand what you're asking.
Is there anything specific that Michiganders would see as far as those three topics that we just talked about? Is there anything specific that you can think of that would affect Michiganders specifically, or would improve our lives in any way in reference to being able to kind of rein the federal government back in?
So if I'm understanding correctly, you're asking what would the outcome be potentially in Michigan?
Yeah.
So with the federal government, the way it currently is, with career politicians, we have very little voice in the federal government because those people haven't been in Michigan for a long time. I'm being a little judgy with those people, but I'm speaking just in general terms. Our representatives in Congress, they are not living here in Michigan with us, seeing what our concerns are. In addition, the balance of power is off. The federal government has a lot of power over, say, regulation. And our local government, where the people are living in Michigan and are more in tune with our needs, they do not have the power to fix those needs. You look at the roads and you go, oh, well, they're still not fixing the roads. Well, the federal government is controlling 40 to 60% of our state budget here in Michigan. We would like to fix that little thing there. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you. So there's a lot of different things. I mean, the federal government regulates virtually every item in your home. There's nothing that you touch that isn't regulated in some way by the federal government. And that's not in the Constitution. That is via different court cases that change the meaning of the Constitution. And we could go into that, but that'd be a very long conversation. But ultimately, everything that you're touching is regulated. That doesn't mean that all regulation is bad. We need some regulation. But I personally, if we're going to have regulation, would prefer that regulation to come from our legislature here in Michigan that is more aware of what the context is for the regulation. As it is right now, the federal government is regulating, and then our state legislature is also trying to regulate because it's their job. And those two are clashing, and they're creating all kinds of problems for each other and for us. I think that if we could have everything come back down to the state level, we're going to see much more effective regulation and can get rid of a lot of the ineffective regulation that we're dealing with, because Washington, D.C. is using a very broad brush. They're saying we're making this rule and it applies to every state, when every state isn't the same and every state doesn't have the same issues. And they're not considering Michigan specific when they make those rules. They're considering this very broad area. And so I think that there's a lot to be gained in the area of regulation. There's a lot to be gained in having the representation that's making rules for us be closer to home. And I think fiscally, everyone benefits from a fiscally responsible government, because those bills ultimately belong to us. And we will be seeing them one day. And I would like to curtail that now, if we possibly can.
So I just have one last question that I've been thinking about here. So kind of going back to even what we were talking about a few minutes ago, in regards to our state legislatures, how is Convention of States Michigan, and what is your vision for how we can go about building relationships with our state legislatures?
The big thing about state legislatures is that is that they're normal people too. You know, my legislator here his family is a dairy farmers. And I mean, how highfalutin can you get? I talked to the gentleman, and he's very, very nice. It's like talking to a normal person. And I think we get these big ideas of, oh, they're so standoffish and all this, but your state legislatures, they live right next to you. We shop at the same grocery stores. We buy our gas the same places. And if they are a little standoffish when they first meet you, it's probably because so many people have yelled at them. And if everyone who ever comes to talk to you yells at you, you're probably going to be a little standoffish, and that doesn't mean that we have to agree with everything that they do or that they say, but just if you approach them as a normal person and you give them the respect of a normal person, you can build a relationship there that is based on just mutual respect, regardless of views. And the more you talk about these issues, the more you realize this is not a right issue or a left issue. This is really just an American issue. We all want representation that truly represents us. We all want the people making rules for us to be people who understand our needs and the issues that we live with. I've yet to meet a legislator on any side of the aisle that says, you know what, to heck with Michigan, let's just burn it down, or let's just destroy all the forests, or we don't care about the homeless, they should starve. I've never met a legislator who says that. We all agree about a lot of basic facts. We want Michigan to be a good, safe, healthy place to live because we all live here. And I think we all benefit from that. So if we approach our legislators on a person-to-person basis and just learn to know them as an individual, we're going to start building those types of relationships, and we're going to start being able to talk about the issues that really matter.
Great. That's a great point.
I love hearing the idea of being able to talk to your legislator locally. Like you, mine is a local farmer. This place is a couple miles from here. If I had an issue, I know that I could call him up or go over and talk to him. I don't feel like I have that same access to our federal legislators, that there is definitely that disconnect there. So I think that's an important point you made, Sarah.
Yeah, that's great. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people think that because it's a legislator, that it is someone unapproachable. I thought that for years before I joined Convention of States. The idea that you can go and sit down with your legislator was never something I thought I could do. It never even crossed my mind. And so I think when people start realizing, oh, this is actually someone that is local to me, someone that I can talk to. And believe it or not, they actually like hearing from people locally because they have meetings and barely anyone shows up. So really reach out to your local legislator and get to know them because they're there for you.
Sarah, I have one last question for you. Your bio introduces you as a patriot. What caused you to get involved with Convention of States? I mean, mom of six, it's certainly, you've got your hands full. What caused you to get involved?
Well, the honest answer is God. That is the honest answer. I had been a supporter of Convention of States for a very long time. And I had never felt that I had the time or the qualifications to get involved. I also didn't know how. But the combination of those things, I just never did it. And I remember I saw emails a few times saying, we need district captains. And I looked at that and went, you want a leader? No way. I don't have the time. I can't do that. You need someone who's better than me. And that's funny now, but I understand completely how people can feel that way, but it was 2020. And it just felt like it was the time I needed to get involved. It was time to do something. And I'd heard about these things called handwritten notes that were supposed to be really good at getting the attention of legislators. And I was like, I could do that. I could write a handwritten note. And so the problem was I didn't know who my legislator was, because I was really, really smart. And I didn't know what their address was, and I didn't know how to find it. And so I wanted someone to hand it to me. And so I signed up to write a letter, and I got asked to be a district captain. And God didn't let me say no. And, it's just one of those things. I have 6 really good reasons to want to save our country. And I have a God that won't let me say no. And as long as those things are the case, I'm going to keep fighting, because it isn't about how good I am or how capable I am or whether or not I always make it through the list I have every single day. It's about doing what I can to the best of my ability and leaving the outcome in the hands of the Lord. And that's what I'll keep doing.
I love that. I love that. We just had a statewide meeting, and to see and hear all the energy we have from so many people involved. Convention of States is giving hope to people who feel like the world is out of control and the country's going in the wrong direction. We offer hope. And by coming on board and doing some small activity, whether it's writing your legislator or helping with social media or follow up or whatever it might be, all these combined actions of ordinary people is making an extraordinary impact on what we have to offer. So, any last words before I give our viewers some information how they can get in touch with us?
Don't be a slave to fear. You can get out there, you can do things, and what you will do matters. It doesn't matter how big it is. Small things can become big things, and you never know what small action you take is going to make a huge impact on someone else. I had one gentleman tell me, well, I can't talk to enough people. You know, we're never going to get this to happen because I can't talk to enough people. And I told him, I said, it's not about how many people you can talk to. It's about the fact that you talk to one person and they talk to one person and they talk to one person. And like Kelly said earlier, it snowballs. This isn't about one person going out and saving the country. This is about what God can do using one person to touch one person to touch one person. So don't be afraid to get involved because you don't think you can make a big enough impact. Every small impact can become a big impact. Just step out there, have some faith, and give it your best shot.
All right.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear.
For our listeners, after all that you've heard, are you ready to get involved? Are you ready to take that first step and join this team of patriots that is operating here in Michigan in concert with others all over the United States to call for a convention of states? If you're ready to learn more about this grassroots movement, the best place to get started is to sign the petition. You can go to www.conventionofstates.com/take_action. It's right there on the screen so you can see it. Kelly.
Every day we have volunteers that are finding hope when they join with the Convention of States grassroots movement here in Michigan, as well as being able, like Robin just said, being able to join in with everyone across the country. When you're recognizing that you're part of something so much bigger than yourself, and everyday people are supporting efforts in local communities, and just as Sarah kept saying too, just everything that's going on right in your own backyard, right in your own community. And we're bringing awareness about Convention of States. So we need support in every corner of the state. We have a huge landmass of a state to be able to reach out to everybody. And a huge number of people. We have over 10 million people that live in the state. So we need everybody, that all hands on deck, to be able to bring awareness and to be able to get the word out, get information out, and get people engaged with Convention of States, with your Constitution. This is our Constitution, and this is our Convention of States. So check out that volunteer page on our website. You can get more details and into some more of those more details that Sarah and Robin were talking about with some of our volunteer opportunities and the different kinds of opportunities that we have. So please feel free to join us. You are welcome with open arms to be able to help out here with Convention of States. So I'm sorry, Robin, I'll let you hand out the website there too, and that email address.
Thanks, Kelly. The website is a great source of information, conventionofstates.com/Michigan. All your questions will be answered there. But If you have a question for the podcast team, email it to us. The email address is askmi@cosaction.com. Ask MI for Michigan at cosaction.com. And we'll answer their questions for you right here on the podcast. Heck, you might even inspire an entire episode with your questions. So we would love to hear from you. Sarah, thanks again for joining us today. Thank you for all the work you do. Kelly, good as always, and to everyone else, thank you for dropping by, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.